Hello, everyone, and welcome to our demo today. I'm pleased to be welcoming Andy Whitaker from Rustici Software, who's going to be doing our demo today. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone here that if you want additional information based on this demo here, go to that poll in the upper right-hand corner. Make sure you select the yes on that, and you will get additional information after this demo. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy.
All right, thanks a lot. Again, this is Andy Whitaker. I'm from Rustici Software, calling in today from Nashville, Tennessee. So today I want to spend just a little bit of time talking through the importance of content distribution, having a strategy and a solution to handle sharing content outside of your particular ecosystem. Primarily what we're talking about here with content distribution is where you have e-learning content where you're needing to make that available either in disparate internal learning management systems or perhaps to external third-party LMSs. There's a few distribution challenges that tend to rear their heads when we're talking about sharing content with potentially many LMSs. And so we're going to talk a little bit about those. We'll talk about our approach to solving those problems. And then here towards the end, I'll do a quick walkthrough of the content controller application, which is our solution that helps with content management and content distribution and lives behind the scenes in roughly 50 to 60 learning ecosystems around the world. So just a quick bit of background on our company, Rustici Software. Many of you probably know us from our SCORM Cloud application. I know there's a lot of instructional designers, longtime learning and development folks here at the conference. SCORM Cloud is used by a lot of people for content testing, SCORM packages, XAPI packages. But you may not be aware that we're actually behind the scenes in a bunch of e-learning interactions around the world. So we work with lots of LMS vendors, lots of authoring tool vendors. We work with organizations, government agencies, helping them support standards, but also helping them with their content management and distribution. So I'm on the sales team here at Rustici, as you can probably imagine. So I'm one of a couple people that get to talk to a lot of organizations day in and day out about the challenges they're facing around a bunch of different e-learning technology issues. Today, we're going to talk about the content distribution side of things. And so what many organizations bring to our attention and what has them reaching out to us looking for a solution around sharing their content with disparate or third-party learning management systems is that first and foremost, they've got a huge administrative burden. Typically, most of our customers come to us putting copies of their content in all sorts of different learning management systems, again, either internally or externally. And that brings in and of itself a huge amount of overhead in what happens when you have to update a content or a piece of content or version a piece of content. So there's a lot of work that goes in the old sort of way of distributing content where a copy lives in all these different systems to managing that. So first and foremost, our customers are trying to eliminate that administrative burden. Some of the organizations that end up working with us from a content distribution perspective are extended enterprise type organizations where they're needing to share their content out to third-party LMSs that resellers or partners or distributors might be using to consume our customers' training content. And so being able to manage access to that content that's being accessed remotely, turning off access if a relationship with that partner or reseller were to ever end, it ends up being super important for them. Maybe not so much on the internal distribution side, but definitely on the extended enterprise side. Having learning data living in all these different applications is also a huge challenge for our customers. They really want to find a way to bring learning data into one central place so that they can understand how end users in various organizations or inside the business are leveraging content, how they're performing on that content. And when content just lives everywhere, it's really hard to make sense of how people are utilizing the material. And then the last thing, or maybe not the last, but one of the more important things is around standard support. So a lot of our customers end up distributing their content to a bunch of different systems. And now they have to take on the support burden of dealing with maybe imperfect SCORM implementations in a lot of different learning management systems. Or they might want to track their content using the Experience API, and maybe the third-party LMS doesn't allow for that. So they're looking for some solutions there. Kind of the last thing I'll mention here, and I think this is an important detail, is that with the solution that we provide that I'll talk about here in a bit called Content Controller, we're actually freeing up our customers to use whatever content creation tool they choose to use. be it Storyline, Captivate, iSpring, whatever it might be. It allows them to use any authoring tool that they want to use while still being able to centrally host and distribute content out to third-party systems. So as you can probably imagine, and maybe this looks familiar to many of you, this is what a typical ecosystem distribution network looks like prior to a customer coming to us and working with us and using our solution. Many different LMSs, copies of all the courses living in all these disparate systems. Can be just a huge undertaking and a very time-intensive way to distribute and share content. What we're looking to do with our solution, Content Controller, is to centralize the problem. Essentially, this hub and spoke model that you're seeing here on this diagram has our application and your content living in the center. And then we distribute the content out to these third-party LMSs using standards-based proxy packages rather than handing over the content itself to live on that third-party LMS. So right off the bat, we're introducing a single master content library into this environment, which enables us to more easily manage access and license management if that's something that's important to our customer. It streamlines version control and updates that might need to take place with the content. You're doing that within our application in a single master library, and then the updates become automatically available through all the different LMSs where the content's made available. You also then start looking at centralized reporting. Now we are sharing data to all these different LMSs that are connected via these proxy packages, but for our customers, all of their utilization course data across all of their accounts all live within a single application, which is Content Controller. So they get to go to one place to see utilization reporting across the board. And then speaking of that standards issue that I was talking about earlier, you're really reducing your standard support to one solution, which is our solution. We're kind of bypassing the standard support from all these different LMSs. So the support burden around customers or partners or internal LMSs having imperfect SCORM or XAPI support essentially goes away. So real briefly, I want to talk about the types of organizations that tend to use Content Controller. There's two big ones, and then I'll mention a third one. The first is that content centralization type customer. If you're an organization that wants to centralize your learning and development group into a central, more focused area of the business, but you still have disparate LMSs being utilized by various groups within the organization, Content Controller becomes an interesting solution for you there. Again, it introduces this idea of a single master library, one copy of each course rather than many copies living in all these disparate systems, making updates and version control a whole lot easier. It provides centralized reporting for the learning and development team to be able to see how users across all these disparate systems are using the content. And then again, it simplifies the standard support. So really you're only having to focus on the standards in Content Controller, not so much the standards that are happening in all these different systems. One additional thing that I'll mention on the standard side, well, we've got a little bit of time. You could publish and deliver or import XAPI packages into Content Controller while still distributing that content to third-party LMSs or internal disparate LMSs, rather in this case, that only use the SCORM standard. So you might get the benefit of XAPI data while still delivering it in a SCORM format inside that disparate LMS that might be utilized by the sales team or HR or operations or something like that. All right, then the other side of the customer base tends to be extended enterprise. So if you're the type of organization that needs to train or support people further downstream, so those are channel partners, distributors, resellers of your content, Content Controller becomes a really great application for sharing your content to third-party applications or LMSs. Again, single master library. This is where automated access control starts to become really important. If a relationship ever ended with a reseller or a distributor, we get to turn off access automatically to their content without asking them to remove the content from their LMS. And then the centralized reporting bit, I think, becomes important here too. One other type of customer that's not included on the list, but I'll go ahead and mention, is an off-the-shelf content provider. So if you're a business that actually sells content as your business, Content Controller becomes a great solution for you there. All right, let's quickly go over into the application and see it in action. So first we'll start in the content tab. This is where you're going to be adding your content to the content controller application. And to highlight here, we support all versions of SCORM, AICC, XAPI, and CMI5 packages. We also support PDFs, MP3s, and MP4s. You will end up importing individual standards-based packages. So I saw Mark's question here just a moment ago. You'll need to upload the individual SCORM packages if you have SCORM packages, or the individual XAPI packages if you have XAPI or CMI5 packages. Each one of those will be imported, again, a single time into the master library. You're not having to import multiple copies of the same course. It's just a single copy. Once you have the content imported into the system, then you're ready to start distributing that content or sharing that content either to internal disparate systems or to those third-party LMSs that we've been talking about. So the first thing you're going to do is create an account. If it's that internal disparate LMS centralization use case, each account that you create will represent a specific LMS inside the business. Alternatively, if you're the extended enterprise use case, each account will be a distributor, a reseller, any organization that has the third-party LMS that you're needing to distribute that content into. So once you have the account created, if you're an extended enterprise type customer, you're probably going to want to set up some license management within the system so that we can automatically control access to your content that's actually being accessed via the third-party LMS. So those are things like an expiration date, a learner limit, maybe a registration limit. If you're the internal centralization use case, you're probably just leaving this as an unlimited license. So once you have the account created, then your next step is to add the content that you're needing to make available through that internal disparate LMS or external third-party LMS to this account's library. So all the content that you've imported into Content Controller's master library will be available here, and you'll simply select the courses or bundles or folders that you're wanting to add to this account's library. Maybe you'll add some notes, you'll hit submit, and all of that content will get added to this account's active library. The last step then is to create the deliverable that you share with the LMS administrator or the third party that needs to make your content accessible through their LMS. And that's where the proxy packages come in. What we're doing here is enabling you to create standards-based packages, one for each course or piece of content that is compatible with that third-party LMS. And so we're using standards for all of these things. Most of our customers will use SCORM, but we have some support for some other standards as well. So those will create those proxy packages, which you hand over to the third party or the internal LMS administrator. Those will import into their LMS like any other standards-based packages. End users will log into that LMS directly, but when they launch one of these courses via the proxy package, we're going to take care of loading the course in the browser for the user, collecting all of the course data, and then sharing data back into the third-party LMS. So quickly, this is what it looks like as data is coming back into Content Controller, again, for your team to have utilization reporting across all your courses, across all the different LMSs that you're sharing content with. So some high-level completion data, average score, things like that. If you have interaction data that you're tracking in your content, you'll be able to see how users are answering certain questions on a quiz or an assessment. That can be super useful for subject matter experts, for support and things like that. And then we have the learner tab. So if you're interested in a particular account and you want to take a look at a specific course, then the learner report provides us with a more narrowly focused view of the data for that content. And down here at the bottom, we've got the learner table, which you can actually drill down one more level to actually look at an individual learner's results and see perhaps their individual answers to questions on a quiz or an assessment. For sake of time, we're going to jump back over to the presentation, quickly give you a view of some of the organizations that are using the Content Controller application. Again, those centralization use cases are great. Extended enterprise is really helpful. Even off-the-shelf content publishers, many of them use Content Controller to help manage licenses, manage distribution, have access to reporting, things like that. All right, so again, if there is an interest to get more information from us on this solution, I encourage you to answer the poll in the top right. We're happy to share resources that we have, like our distribution ebook. We've got a bunch of case studies on our website. I'm happy to set up one-on-one calls if folks are interested in discussing their particular use case and potentially using Content Controller. And then just another plug, myself and Chris Tompkins are going to be doing a session next week on SCORM, XAPI, and why you might choose one standard over another. So that's a great session. Encourage folks on the call to join that as well. So while we've got a little bit of time left, I want to see about answering some questions. I know we've got about 5 minutes left. Okay, so first one, let's see. I answered that one. We may want to use this software for external customers, education. However, we'd like to have strong requirements to mask user data that we gather from an analytics and privacy perspective. So yes, absolutely. So Content Controller has an anonymization capability that you can apply globally for the application or in an account by account basis. And that essentially enables our system to anonymize any personally identifiable information that's passed to us from the third-party LMS. So usually does away with any concerns around your site having access to any personally identifiable information that's coming from the end user. So it can be a really beneficial feature there for alleviating those maybe data privacy security concerns. All right, so David Glow mentioned, I'll just read his question. So instead of publishing and handling SCORM 1.2, 2004 versus XAPI per customer or client, you just make a library and make it available. So yes, so important detail here. You get to make standards-based decisions on your content independent of the standards that the third-party LMS supports. So if you're going all in on XAPI and CMI5, but a lot of the third-party LMSs that you're needing to distribute your content to only support SCORM, maybe even just SCORM 1.2, you can still publish all of your content to XAPI or CMI5 packages, import and deliver those through Content Controller. Those proxy packages, though, you'll end up sharing as SCORM packages so that they can be immediately compatible with that third-party LMS. And then we take care of collecting all of the XAPI data stored in Content Controller's LRS. You can even forward that data onto a third-party LRS like Learning Locker, Watershed, Yet Analytics. And then we're also going to share data back into that SCORM conformant LMS as well. I'm going to just hop over into the chat here. It looks like I think we've covered most of the questions. So I know we've got a few minutes left, but I don't need to keep you for, oh, wait, Mark has one more. Our course is typically set up with multiple types of content, separate modules in the LMS. Does that mean that rather than publishing out a course for a third-party LMS, we'd really be only publishing mini packages of content and asking them to create the frame for the whole course in their own LMS? Yeah, so basically, yes, Mark. You're just distributing these lightweight standards-based packages. Based on the LMS that the third party is using, you might have to help them organize that content in a way that makes sense. If you have sort of a linear flow to the courses or the pieces of content that you're providing the third party LMS, you might have to help them sort of organize it properly within their LMS. But each LMS is going to handle that a little bit differently. So you're going to be able to just share those lightweight packages, still manage all of the content from a central master library, have access to all of that utilization reporting yourself, while still making the content available through the third-party LMS. The LRS, for Mark's question, is really primarily used for capturing and storing XAPI data that's coming from tin can packages or CMI5 packages. It's used just for the reporting that we provide within Content Controller. If you need to do more advanced LRS-based reporting with that data, you'll want to forward that on to an application like Watershed or Learning Locker or Yet Analytics, something like that, where you could do a bit more advanced things with that data. So I know that we've got some additional questions. I'm about to run out of time. But yeah, please, if you have interest in learning more, discussing things further with me, access to any resources that we have, while we have a little bit more time, please answer that poll question with yes, and we'll get back to you here within the week or so. Appreciate everyone's time today. With that, David, I guess I'll maybe kick it back to you.
Excellent. Andy, thank you so much. That was a great demo. I saw a lot of great questions coming through chat. And as a final reminder, if you haven't already done so, do please complete that poll. You'll get the ebook you see on your screen. You get the presentation slides and additional resources. Thank you so much, Andy, for your spending time with us today. And I want to thank all of you for watching this demo as well. We'll see you at the next session, everybody. Take care.
Appreciate it.